Welcome to the Built to Last podcast, a community for coaches founded on the principles encourage, equip, and empower. We are performance coaches working for eternal purpose. Now, here are your co-hosts, Charlie Ray and Justin Bentavania.
All right, guys, welcome back. Built to Last podcast, episode 3. This week we have Coach Zac Woodfin from Kansas University. He's director of sports performance for football there. Great episode with Coach Woodfin. And before we get into it, though, I just want to give you guys our Bible verse of the month. Obviously, it's the month of October now. Came to the conclusion of our first month of putting podcasts out in September. And new month, new Bible verse. This month we have 1 Corinthians 15:58, which reads, "Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain." And we talk about why we created this podcast and just who we are as coaches, especially in strength and conditioning. What is strength, right? Being immovable, right, in the midst of adversity, or overcoming that adversity, really. And what we're doing here with the Built to Last podcast, in case we have anybody who's new, is we just wanted to create a resource. Charlie and I, we met at the CSCCA conference a few months back in May, and Charlie put it out there to a bunch of coaches at the meeting that all the Christian coaches have on the last morning of the conference. Said, hey, this is an idea I have, something God put on my heart, and if anybody wants to get on board, please feel free. I jumped on top of it, and now we're like best buddies, me and you. And so,
yeah, man, it's been awesome getting to develop a friendship with you, man.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. And having all our guests come on and people like Ron McKeefrey, Coach Paul Mary in the first few episodes, and now Coach Woodfin. I know he's been a huge mentor for you. It's pretty surreal seeing this thing kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome. And just the fact that, we get to interview one of my mentors on this, one of the episodes was like so incredible. But just to give you guys a quick overview of Coach Woodfin, this is a guy that I've known for several years now. And when I first met him, I was interning at the University of Alabama, and I was encouraged to go on site visits and that type of stuff. And so he was at Southern Miss as a director for football and really over all their sport programs. And I just went on a site visit to go meet him, and it was only 2 or 3 hour drive from where I was at in Tuscaloosa. And right when I got in there, I saw that he had a Bible on his desk, and in the episode he actually refers to using your office and that kind of stuff just to be able to share a message of hope and just to be open. And so immediately, as we started talking, I said, hey, Coach, I see you got a Bible on your desk. Tell me about your relationship with Jesus and, what's that all about? And next thing you know, he opened up and was just sharing about his faith and how coaching is a platform to really influence people. And it was incredible. And we struck a chord of, man, this is a guy I want to be like. I want to be around this guy as much as possible. And so pretty much within a few weeks after meeting him for the first time, I called him up and said, hey, Coach, listen, I would love to be a mentee from you. I'd love for you to be my mentor spiritually, emotionally, relationally, and professionally, just from those different areas of life. And, would you be okay if I called you once a month? And he was pretty much like, oh, yeah, that would be awesome. I would love that. And so we've done that literally for about 3 or 4 years now. And it's been cool getting to see how God has worked in our relationship. And just a little bit of background with Coach Woodfin. He's kind of been all over the place. In 2007, 2010, he was at Athletes Performance, formerly known as that, now called Exos. He also spent a short time in the NFL with the Green Bay Packers from 2011 to 2013. And then he was at UAB for a year, 2014. That's when he was the College Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year. That program shut down for whatever reason, the football program. And so he was kind of out of a job, but then God opened up the door for him to go to Southern Miss, which is when I encountered him. That was 2015, 2016. And another amazing opportunity, God opened up the door to go to Kansas, and that's where he's been at since 2017. So he's doing big things at Kansas, and I know you guys are going to get a lot out of this episode. Just a quick overview of the episode. We talk about a lot of different things, mainly our faith in action. That's how you share Christ, is by our action, not just what you say, but how you live it out. And then also just being a light with in the darkness, really, with how you treat your family, how you invite your athletes into your life by inviting your family into your life, and really combining those two. Coach Woodfin does a really good job in this episode talking about balance. how do you balance being a family oriented man, a man of God, and a high proactive professional in this field of strength and conditioning when so many coaches can burn out and just spend all their hours, at their job. So he talks about efficiency in that standpoint. And then lastly, he talks about your call to walk in the calling that God has for you. You guys will get to see at the end when we ask him what success is. Just pay attention because he gives a really good definition.
That was awesome. That was one of my favorite parts too.
Yeah, it was incredible. But yeah, you guys are going to get a lot out of this episode. So thanks for listening.
It was a short one, but it was a great one. Let's go.
Okay, well, thanks, Coach Woodfin, for coming on the podcast with us. Really excited to be able to do this with you. You've been one of my mentors for a long time, and this has been something that you've encouraged me to pursue. So it's really cool to have you on the third episode.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, like I said earlier, man, I'm proud of you for going after this and making it happen. I think it's something that you had in your mind for like a year or more. And to just get it going is key. Just start it and see where the Lord takes it. It's going to be awesome. I'm proud of you guys for doing it.
Awesome, Coach. We'll just go right into the questions. So if you can, just give us a background onto your journey into strength and conditioning.
Sure. So my journey started at UAB. It's where I went to my undergrad, Alabama, Birmingham. I knew probably my junior year I wanted to get into this field. So I elected to go exercise science. After UAB, played a little bit in the NFL, and I really was intentional about that time. From a strength and conditioning standpoint, I would really befriend those coaches of all the teams that I played for, ask them questions, write my, journal, obviously do the workouts. I played for several different teams. So, each team had a different style or philosophy of training. From, the Ravens was a high intensity program, all machines. The Packers was pretty much a movement-based program. The Texans was a high intensity. And so I had an opportunity to fill out different programs, learn different programs, ask coaches why we were doing certain programs. So helped me a lot there. After playing in the NFL, I kind of started my career officially as an intern at 2007 at the University of Alabama. And then I was a part-time strength coach at UAB simultaneously. Would drive back and forth from Tuscaloosa to Birmingham mornings and afternoons to do those jobs. Then probably after about 4 months, I got an opportunity with Athletes Performance, which is now called Exos. I moved to Los Angeles, California, and started to learn and to coach with those guys there in 2008, January 2008 or December of 2007. Really, my foundation was formed there. My coaching foundation, my philosophy was formed and really proven there. I say proven because I went through Athletes Performance as an athlete. So coming out of college, having the opportunity to go to the NFL, I trained there. And my world was opened up big time, to movement, to nutrition, to recovery, to mindset. And my body, it changed dramatically in 4 months. Not my body, not so much, I shouldn't say, my athletic skills, my ability to move was enhanced greatly. So I felt it. And like I said, going through the NFL, I did everything every coach told me to. It didn't matter what the program was, if I agreed or didn't agree, I did it. So I got an opportunity to really feel, what does a high intensity program feel like to me? What does my body feel like? How do I move when I train like this? And so all those different programs, it allowed me to form my philosophy based on what I truly believed, going through it as an athlete and then it making sense from a scientific standpoint as a coach. So I spent 4 years at Athletes Performance. That led me into an assistant position with the Green Bay Packers. So in a relationship that I formed playing there, again, asking a lot of questions to the assistant strength coach there when I was playing, who was Mark Lavatt. led to a friendship that remained a long time still to this day. Well, that friendship led to him hiring me. He became the head strength coach.
That's awesome.
And he knew how interested I was in it because he saw me playing and asking questions, and he followed my career at Athletes Performance. So I worked for Mark for 3 years. Really started to want to lead a program myself. Felt like I was ready, and that's when the UAB opportunity presented itself. I became the head strength coach, or the director of all sports, really, at UAB in 2014. That was one great season. They ended the program after that year. We'd had the best season they had in 10 years, but they ended it anyways, which opened up an opportunity for me at the University of Southern Mississippi as the director of strength and conditioning for all sports there as well. I did that for 2.5 years. And then the Lord opened the door at Kansas. And after a lot of praying and coming here to visit, this was the right move for me and my family to make. And so we did that. This is my 3rd year starting at Kansas. So it's been a good journey. It's taken me a lot of places, but I'm here to call, answer the call, like where does God want to use me the most? And I'm trying to always be intentional with where that is and to go where he says go.
And I don't think that's uncommon too, especially in our field. I mean, coaches, you ask a coach at any given school, I'm sure they've moved around at least a few times,
Sure.
at this point in their career to land that spot where they're at now. Do you mind, Coach? I know you went into a few different experiences you had where it had an impact on your coaching philosophy.
Sure.
If you could talk a little bit more about that, of what your coaching philosophy is, maybe even programming wise, and then also as a coach and how you're interacting with your athletes on the floor.
Sure. So my coaching philosophy from a performance standpoint is really a movement-based philosophy, really teaching athletes in a step-by-step progressive manner how to move efficiently and how to move properly, combining those movements from the weight room to the grass or the turf, and teaching athletes how it's really all one quality movement system. What we do in the weight room should just strengthen the movements that we utilize on the field. Plyometrics are a part of that movement program, but it's a movement-based system in terms of the way we train, but it's a holistic-based system in the terms of everything. And the holistic model is mindset, training their mind to believe they can do anything they want to do, training their mind how to make great decisions, character development, training their mind how to endure tough situations and respond the right way to adversity. The second part is the movement. So mindset, movement, nutrition is a key component of the holistic model. How to fuel your body for the training, how to help your body recover after the training. Hydration obviously comes in there, and then recovery rounds out the holistic model of each and every day, each and every week, each and every month. There's got to be a form of recovery so we can be consistent in what we're doing, and we can come back day after day after day and train in an elite way. In my opinion, that's how you build champions on the field and off. Because every day we're talking about developing character. We're talking about how do you dress? How do you talk to people? How do you present yourself? Every day we're talking about, did you sleep? Did you get quality sleep? So you can be consistent with your character every day, with your training every day. So, from a sports performance standpoint, that's my philosophy. From a personal and just kind of how I go about life, the philosophy is to use strength and conditioning as a avenue to impact young people to be the best they can be as a person, and eventually that conversation leads to knowing who Jesus Christ is, accepting him as their Lord and Savior, and letting him kind of lead and guide their life, their purpose. So
And if I can follow up on that, Coach, so obviously being in a school that's not faith-based or it's not a Christian school, how do you kind of go about that, right? Is there a way that maybe it's like a strategy you utilize a lot to reach athletes, or is that something where if the conversation kind of presents itself and the Lord leads it in that direction, then you'll kind of jump on the opportunity? How do you go about that?
Yeah, the number one way I go about that is through my actions. You will tell somebody everything they need to know about how you talk to them, how you give them time, how you serve them, the questions you ask, your day-to-day action. Some of these guys, it's taken me a year and a half, 2 years to really earn that trust. But I've tried to be consistent for 2 years to earn it. And finally they see that I am who I am. My words match my actions. And I try to have integrity with that. So the number one way is through how they see me live, how they see me interact with my wife, how they see me interact with my kids, how they may not ever see me doing certain things. They may not ever hear me using vulgar language, or if I do, I apologize. So I think that's the number one way, your actions. But also the door is always open. If you do come into my office, you're going to see scripture in the office. You'll see a Bible open in the office. You'll see, devotional books in the office. And they'll ask, hey, what is this? And then I'll ask them, hey, man, is there anything I can talk to you about? Is there anything I can pray for you about? And then sometimes the conversation does start with them, like they get a good sense of who I am all about. And they may come in and say, hey, I'm struggling with X, Y, or Z. Can we talk about it? And that talk is generally going to go to, hey, when I'm struggling, this is how I do it. And I'll pull out scripture. This is where I look for my help. And maybe this will help you too. Because again, you don't want to force it and you don't want to be, but you want to live it and you want to let your life speak for that, and then opportunities will arise.
Oh, that's awesome, Coach. Thanks for sharing that. I've seen that from day one since I've met you, and that's why I've tried to pursue this mentor relationship with you. But speaking of mentors, what do you think makes a good mentor, and who are your mentors that have been impactful in your life?
Sure. I think what makes a good mentor is just the intentionality of being present with the mentee, whether it's, hey, we need to meet for coffee every couple of weeks. So presence, accountability, I think is key for a mentor-mentee relationship. The honesty and the vulnerability to be open up about, hey, these are things that are going well. These are things I'm struggling with. Lead me, like humility for the mentee, and just giving that mentor full reign of whatever you say, I'm going to try to do because I trust you that much. And so those are kind of the three things I would say, just a presence, in the mentee's life, the humility from the mentee to do whatever, and the vulnerability to, have some accountability. Some of my mentors, my father is definitely a mentor of mine. He showed me the way to treat women early on, the way he treated my mom, the way he talked to her, the way he loved her, the way he treated my sister, the way he talked to her and loved her. He held me accountable in ways of work ethic, in the ways of what I was going to do. I started working with him at a young age, and how important that work ethic was, and how important telling the truth was. And so my dad, when I got into college, a guy Charlie, Gary Kramer, who's the director of FCA at Alabama, he started to mentor me. Gary actually lived in Birmingham, and he still does, drove to Tuscaloosa every day. But since he lived in Birmingham, we got to spend a lot of time together because I was playing college football in Birmingham.
Yeah. Okay.
And that relationship continued on through the NFL, through really through now. I still call Gary for advice, big decisions. But I would say Gary was a mentor of mine. Moving forward, there was some mentors that were a little bit mentors, I would say, maybe from afar, but it was at least once or twice every month that I got to spend time with them. So Erwin McManus, who was the pastor of my church when I lived in California, Mosaic. He was a guy that really mentored me from afar, really mentored me through the messages that he brought from the stage. He mentored me through his actions on a weekly basis, whether it be midweek serving opportunities. And then one of his co-pastors at Mosaic, Goody Goodlow.
Oh, yeah, Goody.
He was great at the conference, yeah.
Yeah, he was at the conference. And so that's kind of how that started. Goody and I go back to California, and he's obviously still a mentor of mine that, I do a lot of stuff with now, Power Conference. He's a big part of Power Conference, and so those are some key mentors that I've had in my life that have really helped me on my walk with Christ, on the decisions that I've made, how to parent my kids, all the big important things in life.
Yeah. And Coach, you mentioned.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you just mentioned a few things that really struck a chord with me, and I think that when we think back to Genesis, right, when Eve eats the apple, right, I think the classic case there of lack of masculinity is the passiveness of Adam, right, not being involved in what his wife's doing and not leading her and guiding her spiritually and with decisions that she's making. And when you had talked about treating your wife the right way and in front of athletes, I'm sure they probably see that and take something from that. Makes me think of like a work-life balance and how are you involving your family with what you're doing, but keeping it at the same time separate. Can you go into a little bit about that and how you maintain or create a work-life balance?
Yeah, great question, because that's key. If you're going to really follow Christ and abide by his word, then you can't neglect your family.
Yeah.
It's really served me first. Serve your wife and kids, and then what your profession is. But my work-life balance is good. It's good because I'm really intentional about it. And then I want it to be good for my assistants, because two of my assistants have families. They have kids and a wife. The other two have wives, and I'm sure they'll have kids soon. And so again, I need to model that if I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
So the key is we get in early, but we don't stay late any later than we have to. When we're here, we're extremely efficient with our time. And we do get in early, but there's gaps that I'll allow them. Hey, we're going to be here, maybe at 5:35. But if you want to go take your kid to school at 8 and we're not in the middle of a session, go do that, come back. If you want to go have lunch with your kid at 11 and we're not in a session, go do that, come back. And then try not to schedule anything in the off season past 5 p.m. like training groups. Therefore, we can finish, we can make sure we're ready for the next day, and then we can get to our families by dinner time. We can eat dinner with our family. We can have time at night with our kids. We can help with baths. We can read to them. We can just be dads. And then in season, everything we try to do everything possible. Obviously, before practice, we're afternoon practice, and when practice is over, there's a few things we got to do to clean up practice, whether it be collecting all the catapults or making sure everybody gets their post-practice nutrition or hydration. And there might be an intern that needs to help with a few things here or there, but generally after practice, try to tell everybody to, hey, finish quickly and go be with your family. So that's kind of how I try to structure it. I'm not a believer that we need to just be sitting here at the desk till 8 every night, not every night, talking about things that we could have talked about during the day, and to me that's efficiency. And that's intentionality on what you want to do, how you want to do it, when you want to do it. And there's a reason and a rhyme behind everything we do and a why. So that's kind of how we create our balance.
Yeah, that's awesome. Balance is one of the most important things I've learned from you, just seeing it from afar, seeing you model it. Well, Coach, I wanted to ask you another question. What do you think has been one of the hardest things God has taught you being a Christian strength conditioning coach, being able to use this as a platform for sharing Christ? Has there been anything that's been really difficult that you've had to go through as a, Christian strength conditioning coach?
Yeah. That's a good question, and we all have adversity in life. And I don't know that it's a certain specific situation that's been the difficult thing. I think the difficult thing is just, as any person that wants to follow Jesus, you got to be uncommon. And that's the hardest part. Like, you can't be like everybody else. And in this society, in this day and age, everybody for the most part wants to be like somebody else. There's social media, and there's I want to do this, and there's the comparison trap. You compare your life to their life, and you compare what you have to what they have, and you compare your team to their team if you're a strength coach, and you compare your program to their program. And so I think just having the discipline and the confidence in who you are and who Christ made you to be, to say, I don't need to be like everybody else. I don't need to compare myself to everybody else. I've got to live my life differently. My life has to stand out. I've got to be light in a dark place. I've got to be the salt of the earth. And that's probably been the most difficult thing, because it's easy to get into the routines, and it's easy to get distracted, and it's easy to just kind of be like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so the difficulty is every day, asking yourself, how am I walking in a different way that Jesus would be honored by my walk, honored by my talk, honored by why I'm doing things. And that's probably the most difficult thing, just a consistency, day after day after day. Have the disciplines in your life to reflect Christ.
Coach, that's fantastic. I think this whole episode has been full of takeaways. And one of my biggest things that I'm already hearing, just the way you live your life, is that you're very intentional. And I'm not surprised that you're successful in where you are. And as we finish up the episode, just a few, we call them fast finishers, that we give to everybody who comes on the episode. Real quick, just your favorite book, favorite story from the Bible, and then how do you define success? So first one, favorite book.
My favorite book is that's hard. I've got a bookshelf back here full of stuff. The easy answer on an episode like this is the Bible, so I won't give that one. There's a book right now that I'm reading that it's called Perfect Practice, and I'm really, really liking it. It's very applicable to, you talked about me being intentional. It's really good because it's opening my eyes to be more intentional with how I lead, how I train. That one's fresh on my mind, so I'm going to go with Perfect Practice. My favorite story from the Bible is definitely Joseph. All the adversity that he went through, from his brothers, and then the story of redemption, that obviously God placed him at a position of power, and then forgiveness, forgiving his brothers for all that. So,
wow. Yeah.
I love that story. What was the third one?
How do you define success?
I define success by really walking in your calling that God's called you to do. It looks different for everybody, but I think if you really try to walk in what God's called you to do, and you're obedient to where He's called you, whether it's in the world's eyes, big, small. Like, if God called you there, like, thrive in that area and make an impact, because every soul matters, and we all have an opportunity as coaches to reflect Christ and to lead people to Christ, and every single one of them matter. So that's my definition of success.
And that's awesome, Coach. Thanks so much for sharing that. And I mean, I got a lot out of this, took a lot of good notes. Really appreciate you giving us some time. I wish we could have longer, maybe we can do another episode, but thank you so much again for just being intentional with us and for allowing us to be able to interview you and ask you these questions.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. And yeah, hopefully we can get another one. Sorry I had to cut it short from this meeting that popped up. But really, again, proud of you guys. Keep doing it. I think it's a great resource, and hopefully, a lot of people, a lot of coaches will tune in, and maybe something that you guys say or one of your participants say can help somebody change their life.
Thank you for listening to the Built to Last podcast, where we encourage, equip, and empower coaches to live out their core values where they live, work, and wherever they build relationships. Have a blessed day, striving to build lasting impact.